I think we are in. I think everybody's on. Let's make sure one is good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hope everyone's having. No, actually, I don't know if 6 is good. All right, so we'll give this one a second. But hope everybody's having a good start to your day, week, weekend, afternoon, whatever it is for you. As y'all can see, the topic here, what we're going to talk about is the game within the game. I want to help you all understand what's really going on out here. This is specifically important for those of you who are professionals at what you do, or you are looking to become a professional at what you do. I'm going to give you some insider game for you to understand what's really happening out here and how it may conflict with maybe what you thought or what you've been taught. It will conflict with a lot of what you've been taught. Doesn't mean that what you've been taught is what you actually think. There's a lot of things I've been taught that I have unlearned and replaced it with something better. So some of you may be in that position, and some of you yet may still be believing some things that you were taught that are actually not true and are not going to help you. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So being that there are a lot of games out there being played and you need to internalize, being that there's so many games out here being played, there are some things that you need to internalize and understand. That the general thesis of what I'm about to share here is that life is not a straight meritocracy. That's the first thing you need to understand. That's the thesis of what I'm about to talk about. That life is not a straight meritocracy. It never has been, and it never will be. And it's only going to go more in the opposite direction from being a straight meritocracy as we move forward in the world that we're in today. So let's get right to it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job here is to take the tools to help professionals take the tools to help athletes get to the top of the sports world, translate them over to the business and professional world and the everyday life to help you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce results. So those are our 3 main things: performance, consistency, and results. That's what we do here at Work on Your Game, whether we're working with an athlete, entrepreneur, professional, corporate, someone transitioning out of government, or someone just getting started trying to figure it out. Those are the people we help, and that's what we help you with. And that's why we have such a wide breadth of people from so many different industries who we work with. So getting into these points, and I'll answer questions at the end of this. Point number 1 is this, and the topic here today is the game within the game. Number 1, the professional speaking business, for example. Any of you who want to give speeches for a living, the speaking business is not about having the best speech. In other words, the people who are doing the most speeches and getting paid the most money, generating the most business, they're not necessarily the best speakers. The modeling game, for example, and if you know anything about the modeling industry, is not about being pretty, even though everybody thinks that. All right, the book publishing game, I got to pause connection here on IG. Give it a second to come back. There it is. The book publishing game, for example, is not about writing the best books. The authors who sell the most books are not necessarily the best writers. So Stephen King and J.K. Rowling are not necessarily the best writers in the world. There are probably some really good writers who you have never heard of who write books, but nobody knows about their books. When I say nobody, I mean relatively to those people. People don't know about their books because they're just not as famous. There are models out there who are prettier than whoever the best known model is out there. There are women out there who are prettier and more attractive, at least maybe to you, than those models, yet nobody knows who those models are. There are speakers out there who are better speakers than let's say Tony Robbins. There are people who can motivate you better than Tony Robbins, but you know Tony Robbins, you don't know those people. There are therapists out there who are better than Dr. Phil, but you only know Dr. Phil. Everybody get my point here? There are people who are good at having conversation and they're better at it than Oprah or Larry King, but you don't know them the same way you know Oprah and Larry King. Everybody get in the direction that I'm going here. I'm helping you all understand that the things that you think are the key to getting ahead in a space, i.e. being good and being better than your competition, is usually not the key. That is not to say that you shouldn't be good. It's not to say that you would just show up somewhere with no skills whatsoever. And if you have all the other things, which I'll get to, then that'll be good enough. Now, if you're a terrible writer, you probably don't want to try to get into the book industry. You need to actually have some skill, but you don't have to be the best writer in the world. And because being the best is highly subjective, especially in areas like these things that I mentioned, it's not like they got a scoreboard. Only sports have a scoreboard where we know the better is based on objectivity. Everything else is based on people's opinions. Modeling industry is based on opinions. Book industry based on opinions. Speaking, opinions. TV shows, all of that stuff is based on people's opinions, which means it is not a meritocracy. It is subjective and is based on who likes who. And it depends on who's in charge. That's really what it comes down to. But I'm going to get into a bigger point here as I go into our thesis here today, which I already told you what the thesis is, which is there is a game within the game. So there are some games, such as sports, that are more meritocratic, which means, as I just told you, there's a scoreboard. If we play basketball and there's a score board at the end of the game, I have 100 points and you have 90 points, then who won? I won. All right, it's clear. All right, the scoreboard tells no lies. There's no judges. It's not like figure skating where there's a judge, or boxing where the judges give you points and you might get robbed on the scorecards. It doesn't happen in a sport that has a scoreboard, like football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Those are meritocracies. Everything else in life, most of the things that most of you do and you're going to spend most of your lives doing, are not meritocracies. My background is in sports. I played sports professionally. That was a meritocracy. I'm in the entrepreneurship world now. I write books. I do speaking. I do coaching. I do consulting. None of those things are meritocracies. All right, none of them. And even though we wish they were, they ain't. Actually, some people don't wish they were because they ain't that good. But most industries, as I just told you, where subjective opinion determines who gets on and who doesn't, skill is not the number one consideration. Everybody heard that? In most industries, skill is not the number one consideration. So if you want to be a model, the number one consideration is not, are you pretty? If you want to write books, the top consideration is not, are you a good writer? If you want to be a speaker, the first question is not, are you good at giving a speech? And again, many of you have grown up to believe that that is the case. That is not the case. Okay. So skills, some, like sports, as I just explained, do make that difference. But in many places, your skill level doesn't matter that much until or unless you can get in the room. Your skill matters maybe once you get in the room, but if you can't get in the room, doesn't matter if you're good. Doesn't matter if you're pretty. Doesn't matter if you can write. Doesn't matter if you can speak or you can do ABC, whatever the skill is. The skill doesn't matter often until you're in the room, and even then is not the most important thing that is being asked. Okay, so let me move on to point number 2. We're talking here today about the game within the game, and important things you need to understand about any game that you're in. Here's the second point. Where am I? Okay, so what is this game that I'm speaking of? The game is really about selling, marketing, and notoriety. That's what the game is really about. Selling yourself or your products or services or your ideas, the marketing of those products, services, or ideas, or you. Marketing means just the conversation that you're able to start and continue with people who might be interested. And then is the notoriety. It's who knows you and what do they think about you? Who knows you? What do they think about you? What's their impression of you? What is being said about you? What's the conversation around you? If they Google you, what are they going to find out? If they call 5 people who they know and ask them about you, what are those 5 people going to say? That's really what this game is about. That's really what will get you in the room. And if those things can get you in the room, then the fact that you're actually good now begins to matter. But if you can't get in the room in the first place, the fact that you're good doesn't matter because you're on the outside looking in. So in the book publishing world, for example, I've written a bunch of books. And I've worked with traditional publishers. I know a whole bunch of people who write their own books. I know a bunch of people who work in the traditional publishing world. I know publishers, I know editors, I know authors. In the book publishing world, the most important consideration is not if you can write a good book. The most important consideration is what can we do business-wise to leverage this book? How can this book be leveraged into business opportunity? That's the question. So if you're going to write a book with a traditional publisher, the first thing they want to know is how much money can we make off this book? And how much money are we willing to bet on the fact that we might make some money? In other words, because they're going to put resources into getting your book published. So whether they give you an advance or not, an advance is just money they're giving you up front that you have to earn back against your royalties, basically earn back against that advance, unless you have a non-recoupable advance. Basically, it's money they pay you up front that you didn't earn yet. But they're asking, how much money can we make off this book? Because they had to put money into making it. They had to put money behind the editing, the design of the cover, if they're doing the cover design, the printing of the book, the shipping of the book to the stores, and they got to hold the inventory if the book doesn't sell. They ship 100 books out to the stores and you only sell 10, and the stores send back those 90 books. They got to hold those books. So they got to think about these things and ask themselves, is it worth the investment to have a book published through this author, whoever this is? And if you're the best author in the world, being the best author in the world isn't going to make them any money. The question is, can this book make us money? And if the answer is yes, the book can make money, you don't have to be that good of an author. There are plenty of books that I've read. I've probably read, if I had to estimate how many books I've read, I'd say somewhere between 500 and 1,000, something like that. Probably more than that, maybe. But let's just say I've read 800 books. Of the 800 books that I've read, I would say that a good percentage of them, at least half, ain't even that good. They're not really well written. They're not really well designed. The points are really not that strong. But the book came out anyway because the publisher, whether that was the individual person who published their own book or it was a publishing company, looked at it and said, okay, we think we can make some money off this book. And at least they made some money for me because I bought the book. Right, get it? So money, if the money can be made, then that's an opportunity. And that's the way that things work mostly in the professional world, everybody. So if you're talking professional, and definition of professional means somebody's getting paid to do something as their main occupation. If that's the case, if that's what we're talking about, the number one consideration is sales, marketing, notoriety, and return on investment. That's what people want to know about. Is there a return on investment available here? Not, are you good? Now, are you good becomes maybe the second or third or fourth or fifth question, but it's never the first question. And the first question that many of us ask about ourselves when we look at ourselves in the mirror is we say, well, I'm good at what I do, so that should be good enough. Now, in the sports world, that again, that's the only place where this might fly. Anywhere else in the world, don't do this. All right. Anywhere else in the world, don't just say I'm good at what I do, so that should be enough. Unless you have somebody working with you, that with you or for you, who's going to do the sales and marketing and notoriety and relationship building and the connecting and the producing ROI. Unless they're going to do all that stuff for you, unless you have someone doing that, you being good is not the end of your work. That's the start of your work. Are you good? Okay, now how do you figure out how do you make that goodness actually convert to something that matters? Because in the business world, just being good alone, I mean, what is that worth? It's not worth much. That's the point. Everybody got this? So this is the game within the game. So the game is, do I know you? Do I like you? And then are you good? Those are basically the three questions people ask. Number one, do I know you? In other words, what is your reputation? Knowing you doesn't mean they have to personally know you. It just means what's your reputation? What's being said about you? If I go look around and find out the conversation around you, does it go along with something that I want to hear or something that I believe in or something that I'm okay with? That's the first question. Do I know you? Who are you? That's the first question. And this is why it pays to have social proof. Social proof it can come in the form of many things. The social proof is subjective. But if someone has, for example, if you go to somebody's webpage and they're selling something, they usually have some type of like testimonials or feedback. It'll have some videos of past customers or clients or members or whatever they call them, people who are involved in their world. Somebody who came to the event last year, you should come to the event this year because here's the feedback we got from last year. That's a form of social proof. If you have a social media profile that shows you in a positive light, that is a form of social proof. If you have a video on YouTube or a video or two on YouTube that shows you talking about, I got a pause connection on Instagram here. If you got a video on YouTube that shows you talking about or doing or demonstrating whatever the thing is that is related to what you're trying to sell, that is a form of social proof. And if there are other people out there who the person you're selling to knows who will say something positive about you, that's a really good form of social proof. What is social proof? It is just proof to another person that you are legitimate, worth listening to, and good at whatever it is that you do. You're worth a second look. That's pretty much what social proof means. Is this person worth taking a deeper look at? So that's the first one. Do I know you? Second one is, do I like you? In other words, are we aligned philosophically in terms of the way that you think, the way that you talk, the things you believe, the stuff that you buy into, the stuff that you don't like, the stuff you disagree with. Now, that doesn't mean people have to be 100% aligned in every single thing, because I'm sure there are people in my audiences, members of our coaching programs, people who read our books, etc., who don't agree with every single thing that I say, but they align enough that they say, okay, I don't agree with that part, but I agree with all these other parts, so that's enough, and I'll move forward. So you don't have to be 100% in lockstep with any person, right? And if you really got down to it in detail, you will find that you are not 100% in lockstep with any human being on the planet, even your best friends. Y'all disagree on some things, but you're willing to overlook some disagreements because you agree on enough other things that matter to you. So do I like you is just a matter of, are we aligned in terms of philosophy? Am I and this person aligned in terms of philosophy as a general point? Again, you don't have to align in every single thing. And then the last question is, are you good? Last question is, can you bring to the table what I actually need? So if someone doesn't know you, i.e. they don't believe you or they don't believe that what you're doing is useful to them, that means they pretty much won't care. Number two, if they don't like you, they're not aligned with you, or you're not a person they would want to deal with or talk to or be in the same room with on a consistent basis. If those two things are no's, then it doesn't matter if you're good. You could be the best in the world. If you're the best in the world at what you do, but the person you're talking to has never heard of you and they don't believe you, even though you're actually good, but they don't believe you, or they simply don't like you, they're just not aligned with you. They're a female and they only want to work with a female, but you happen to be a male, they're not interested. All right, no matter how good you are. Or if you're black and they don't like black people, then they're not going to listen to you. Or if you're white and they don't like white people, they're not going to listen to you no matter how good you are. So these first two questions have to be answered in the affirmative before the third question matters. Third question is, are you good? That only matters if people like you and they know you. And again, knowing you is about, is there something out there that can prove that you are who you say you are and that you are as legitimate as you are presenting yourself to be? It doesn't mean they have to actually know you in real life or have known you for 5 years or something like that. But this is the order. 3 questions. Do I know you? Do I like you? Are you good? 1, 2, 3 in that order. Okay. So actors and actresses who have large social media followings, for example, they will get a part in a movie or they'll get called to act in a movie more because of the notoriety of their name than necessarily their acting skills. And why is this? Because the notoriety of their name is going to help produce return on investment. So when a movie gets produced and the movie actually comes out, if they can say, hey, we got actor John Doe to be the lead role in this new movie that's coming out. Well, John Doe is not going to sell as many tickets as if you say, hey, we got Brad Pitt as the lead in this movie, because Brad Pitt's name is going to sell tickets for people to come watch the movie. Just because it's Brad Pitt, the movie might be terrible. The script might be horrible, but because Brad Pitt is the leading actor in the movie, there's a bunch of people who are going to go see the movie because they want to see Brad Pitt. Why? Because they know him. You get it? They know him and they like him, but the movie sucks. See, that's only the third question. They know him and they like him, so they're going to go see the movie. Then they find out the movie's trash, but they don't find it out until later, until they go see the movie. The money's already been made. Now that's going to hurt them in the future because other people are going to trash the movie, and it might keep other people who are not big fans from going to seeing it. But get my point. If John Doe was the guy and the movie was trash, and the movie's going to die before it even comes out, because the investors who are putting the money up are going to look at it and say, well, this movie sucks, and we don't have anybody who has a big name to help sell tickets, so we're not going to put this movie out anyway. We're not even going to try to put this out because it ain't going to work. Or if they had Will Smith, or you had, name another famous actor or actress, their names are what make the movies big. And by the way, since we're on this subject, Will Smith or Brad Pitt, they're going to read the script before they say yes to being in the movie. And if they say this script sucks, I'm not putting my name behind this, then the movie might die because they can't get a good actor to go do the film because the script is garbage. So all these pieces go together. And the bottom line is, this is especially true in Western society, and is absolutely always true in business, because this is what business is about. This is the essence of business. If people don't see an opportunity to get ROI from a thing, they're not going to do it. And if you're trying to sell someone on doing something, you have to show them how they're going to get a return on their investment. They have to know you, have to like you, and they have to believe that you can help. All 3 must be true. And this is your job as a salesperson, as a marketer, and as a professional. Is your job to communicate this to any audience to whom you wish to sell. If you fail to communicate it, you will not sell. Okay, so the social proof thing is a useful thing. This is where those of you who are social media users, your social media footprint can help you. You got a bunch of Instagram followers, or you got a big following on YouTube, or you're an influencer on LinkedIn, or you got a bunch of people following you and liking your videos on TikTok, whichever platform, maybe it's a combination of them. You can leverage this as social proof that you're actually good, so that when someone else wants to do something with you, as long as what's on your social profile is actually relevant to whatever they want, then it's a thing. Like, there are people who will say to me, hey, I see that you have X number of followers on a certain application, and it's more than they have. Well, maybe you can help me get some followers, so that's what they want. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying if that's what they want and you want to help them get it, that social proof matters, because it will help you close the deal. Now, if it doesn't matter to them, you got to show them something that does matter. And this is not the same for every person. So certain people want to know certain things about you to know they should move forward. Other people want to know other things about you. It is your job to know what they want to know and then show them what they want to see, so that they can make a more informed decision about you, whether it's they need to go the opposite direction and go somewhere else because you don't want them, or they need to come closer in because you do want to work with them and you can. Book publishing deals, for example, as I just mentioned, they get handed out based on how many books you can sell. You get a book publishing deal because the publisher thinks you can sell books. You don't get a book publishing deal because you're a good writer. Now, if you're a good writer, you should just start a blog and just write some blog posts and put them out and make a long post on Facebook. You can do that. But if you want a book publishing deal, ladies and gentlemen, you need to show the publisher that you can help them make money, which means your book is going to sell. This is what they want to know these days. They want to know how many followers you got online, how big is your email list, have you written any other books, how many copies did those books sell? They want to know, because that's how they're guessing whether or not they can make money on your book, because they are making a bet. They're betting on you because they're putting their resources into putting your book out there. And if they don't make money back, it's not going to kill them, because they know that not all books are going to make money back, but they want to try to find the ones that will help them make money back. And if they can't find it, then they eventually do go out of business. So anyway, people can't judge a book till it comes out and they start putting out reviews. But to get those first few sales, you need somebody who can sell. All right, simple as that. Point number 3. We're talking here today about the game within the game. Number 3, when people first hear what I'm talking about right now, they have a tendency to feel maybe a little bit down about themselves. People hear this and think, damn, I've been thinking one way, but the way you're explaining this, Dre, is you're giving it to me a completely different way. So I used to think that I just needed to be really good at what I did, and that would solve all the problems. But now what you're saying is being good at what you do doesn't really matter if you don't solve the other more important problems. And that is what I'm saying. So some of you hear this and you might be, feeling a little bit sheepish about yourself because of what I'm pointing out, because you've been living your whole life thinking that if you just got good, everything will be good. And here I am telling you that that's not true. Let me tell you what you can do with what I'm sharing here today. If you happen to be in that position, is first thing you have to do is find out how to play the game that you're in. If this information is new to you, you got to find out, first of all, what game you're in and then how to play it. Many people think they're in one game, but they're actually in another game. I saw this video online on YouTube maybe like 2 days ago, and it was an entrepreneur. He was saying a similar thing to what I'm saying right now, because this is one of the biggest issues that people have when they're not getting what they want in any aspect of life, is that you think you're in one game, but you're actually in another game. And if you make an incorrect assessment of what game you're in, then you're going to be making moves based on the wrong game. So, for example, I remember when I was listening to Michael Jordan talk about when he retired from basketball the first time in like 1993. And then he went away, played baseball for a minute. He came back in late 1995 in the season to play basketball. And he was still pretty good, but he was a little bit off, not the perfect Michael Jordan. And he talked about how he had been training the previous 2 years for baseball. And the training for baseball is different than the training for basketball. He still had talent for basketball, because when he came back, he still had a couple big games, made some big shots. He could still dunk on you and score on you and all that stuff. We know that he was still looked good, but he wasn't exactly him. And there's a certain training you do for baseball, there's a certain training you do for basketball. So after that offseason, when the Bulls got eliminated in the playoffs, that next offseason in 1995, before the 95-96 season, Jordan spent that summer training for basketball. And then the next season, he was great Michael Jordan again. He was marginally better, significantly. You could tell the difference, but marginally better, or more than marginally better than he had been the previous year, because now he had trained for the actual thing that he needed to do, was playing basketball. So this is what I mean. So if you're about to play baseball, but you train as if you're playing basketball, then you're not going to be as good as if you train for playing actual baseball. It's the same thing for you all. If you've been training for, I need to be as good as possible, but you haven't thought about, how do I make sure people know that I exist? And how do I make sure that people have a favorable opinion of me before they find out that I'm good? Then again, you've been playing the game backwards. Again, it's not that being good doesn't matter at all. It's just that it doesn't become relevant until you handle the other two questions. So what you need to do is figure out, how do I handle other two questions of, how do I make sure people know me? How do I make sure people have a favorable opinion of me, i.e. liking me, the right people? This doesn't mean everybody, the right people. Then once you got those two taken care of, then you can show them your skills, and then they'll say, okay, then let's take the next step forward. So you need to learn how to sell. If I had to put this in 2 simple sentences, here they are. I got to pause connection on Instagram one more time. I'm gonna give you the 2 simple sentences you need to get. Here they are. Sentence number 1, learn how to sell. All right, that's the first thing you got to do. Number 2, learn how to create connections and relationships. So selling, relationships. Those are the 2 things you need to master. You need to make yourself valuable to people who are already active in the game, and then leverage the connections that you make with those individuals. Do not try to do everything all by yourself. Do not try to do everything by, I'm just good at what I do, so that should be enough, and people are going to come find me. As they say, if you build it, they will come. That's nonsense. If you build it, they will not come. Many of you have already built stuff and nobody's showing up. Why? Because they don't know that you exist. They don't know you. So you have to learn how to sell, and you got to build relationships. When you can do these 2 things, guess what? You don't even have to be that good. Has any of you ever seen a person who wasn't even that good at a thing, but they were getting an opportunity just because they knew the right people, or the right people knew them? Of course, it happens all the time. I mean, look at LeBron James' son got drafted to play for the Lakers. Was he really good enough to get drafted to play for the Lakers? I would say no. But because he is connected to the right person, he got an opportunity. That's how it works. And there are people out there who have a whole bunch of skill. You have no connections and you don't know how to sell, and you're not getting any opportunity. The phone's not ringing. Nobody's knocking on your door because they don't know that you exist. So it's your job to get out of there, out of that situation, and go ring some phones, knock on some doors, and get yourself known so you can actually get the opportunities that you feel you deserve. And if you don't do this, you will continue to feel frustrated because the opportunities are not going to come find you, again, if nobody knows where to look. So let's recap what I just shared here, which is learning to play the game within the game. Again, remember that life is not a straight, fair meritocracy, even though many people want it to be. Meritocracy only comes into play after you can get in the door. So number one, being a public speaker, professional speaker is not about giving a speech. Being an author is not about how good you write. Being a model is not about how pretty you are. It is about learning how to get yourself seen, heard, and known before that thing matters. So the game that I'm speaking of, this is point number 2, is about selling and notoriety. If you are unknown and you can't sell, then it doesn't matter if you're good. Is that clear enough? If you're unknown and you cannot sell, it does not matter if you are good. And number 3, when people first hear this, they might think, well, damn, I wasted a whole lot of time and didn't even know that I was playing the wrong game. Let me tell you how to fix this immediately and make the fact that you're good matter. How do you make it matter? Number 1, learn how to sell. Number 2, learn how to build relationships. If you can get good at selling and building relationships and you're good, then you're going to make magic. If you can get good at selling and building relationships and you're only mediocre, you will still get plenty of opportunity. If you can sell and build relationships and you're garbage, you'll still get a chance. But if you can't sell, you can't build relationships, doesn't matter. You can be the best in the world. Nobody's going to care. All right. And that's where you don't want to be. That's the person you don't want to be. So with all that said, I don't think I saw any questions in the comments section here. I don't usually do lives on Saturdays, so I don't think many people who watch me even knew that I was going to do this live here. I didn't even know I was going to do this, but I said we can squeeze in a live here. I usually do Monday through Friday on around 8 o'clock a.m. What's going on, DJ Chris Lopez? Always Training said third day will be on the way. Chris Lopez says skills are just a plus, and that's what you can do to bring value. And skills are just a plus, and is what can you do to bring value and what people say. Yeah, you got that somewhat right. As DJ learned, you can be very good, but it doesn't matter is what you can bring to the table. Are they good reviews about you, and will you bring what they're looking for? Yeah, exactly. So you got to give people what they want. And so in our world, we call that selling to the buyers. That's what this game is about. All right, so we'll wrap this up, folks. Again, I usually do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. So it's a completely different time than normal. But we will be out here Monday, 8 a.m. Between 8 and 8:30 is when I start these lives. We will see you all then. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Oh, yeah, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to work with me directly, have me as your direct coach. That's where it happens. That link is either link in my bio or the pinned comment, workonyourgameuniversity.com. We got a group call coming up in about 40 minutes here. Anyway, if you're a member of the university. So that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. We out of here. Everybody have a great weekend.